Brimstone has a new drum kit out. It is the Maas Signature Series, and this is pretty exciting, I think, because a lot of us remember the Maas sample library that Brimstone put out years and years ago. These were phenomenal samples. I got a lot of use out of them in a lot of different sessions for a wide variety of music. I know a lot of friends who did too. I think the only issue with them was that you needed the full version of Contact to use them, and no one wants to pay for anything, so I didn't want to pay for anything. I used them with Trigger, but they were great samples, and this is great because now we're getting a reimagined, re-recorded, completely new sample library from Room Sound, and now it all works within the free version of Contact. We have a beautiful new interface. Everything's pieced together really nicely, and this is just really exciting because it's kind of the glory of and natural feel of those old samples, but now in a modern, redefined sampler. So, a little few things to note about this library is that it was recorded at Jay's Studio Getaway Recordings in Haverhill, Mass., and it was recorded by Jay, Dave, and the drum tech was Joey Bartlett. I think I'm pronouncing that name right. So I pulled up one of the grooves from inside the plugin, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to demonstrate the different drums and how they sound. Go over the mixer, we can see that I just have everything set to 0, just basic, all the bleed controls, everything, and we're going to keep full mic bleed on. So let's take a listen to the first snare in the collection. It's the New York Agrolite, and that's based on the Ludwig Acrolite, which is a steel snare that was introduced in 1963. It was actually for students to practice on, but everyone loved the way it sounded so much, they're like, hey, let's just put this on everything. And every drummer has been using it for years and years and years. So let's take a listen to how that sounds. Awesome. Sounds really nice. Sounds just like a Ludwig steel snare, honestly. And so next snare is going to be the FM King, which is based on a Singerland Radio King snare. And that's arguably one of the more famous drums around. The Radio King was released in the mid-30s, and it was one of the first snares to use like steam bent wood to construct it. It was like steam bent maple, and most snare drums at the time were using plies of wood together. So this is a super more like vintage sound. This is a really old school kind of snare. It's still used today though. So let's take a listen to how that sounds. It's a really nice sound there. Again, it's a little bit more rocky and vintage. And then next we have the vintage Wuffle WFL. It's based on a Ludwig 50s WFL waffle snare. But this one was recorded with wood hoops. So definitely a very defining sound. And if you've ever worked with wood hoops before, you know that this is exactly the sound that you get from wood hoops, and it's really fun to be able to have this in the programmed environment. I feel like I don't see that a lot, so definitely a helpful tool to have. Next is the Dark Beauty, which is based on a Black Beauty, and if this mic wasn't on a stand right now, I'd drop it. Yeah, that's going to work on just about any kind of rock mix you'd ever need. Super aggressive, hard-hitting Black Beauty type snare. The Arlington is a Craviato custom drum. I hope I'm getting the name of that company right. But essentially, it's a custom drum made out of cherry, maple, and walnut together. So let's take a listen to that. super low tone out of it, super deep. Not so much crack, but a really nice aggressive boom that goes on. I really like that snare. Finally, we have the Silver Anniversary snare, which is based on a Ludwig Silver Anniversary, surprisingly enough. And what that is that in 1935, Ludwig had a 25th anniversary, and they put out a few different snares kind of saying they were redefining snare drums. And this was a brass one that really has still been in use a lot today. So let's take a listen. I just love brass snare drums, man. You put a brass snare drum in front of me and I like it. I'm happy with how it sounds. It sounds really good. For kicks, we have the 70s stainless, and that is based on a Ludwig 70s stainless steel shell. And let's take a listen to that one. The next kick is going to be the 2013 Arlington, and that's based on another Craviotto drum, and this one's going to be maple and poplar. Kind of a less deeper tone, a little bit more mid-range punch. The next kick is the Classic Star Kit, and that's based on the Tama Star Classic. This is a very well-known kick drum. It's used on so many great records, and this one is made out of Babinga. I love the way this kick sounds. It's just the directs sound exactly how I want a kick drum to sound. And in the room mics, it just takes up the exact right space. There's not too much sub or anything. Just really, really awesome sounding kick drum. And the last kick drum that we have is the 60s vintage. And this is cool because it's based on a Camco maple shell from the 60s. And Camcos have somewhat of a legend behind them, and they're actually kind of the basis for the DW Collector series, which we all know and love. So very cool kick drum to put in this collection. Very, very classic sound to it. Really love the way that kick works. We get two sets of toms in the J Maas Signature Series. The first set is a stainless steel shell series that's based on Ludwig drums, similar to the kick drum that we start off with, the 70s stainless. And then the other options we have is the Tama Star Kit again. And we have that on the 16 and we have that on the 12. But the one place that we don't have the Star Kit is that there's a 60s cam on the 14. And I'm not sure what this drum is based on, but I'm imagining that it's based on something similar to the 60s vintage that we have down here, seeing as this is based on a Camco. Really great tom sounds out of that. And then I put together a bunch of grooves in a row just to kind of show you a general sound of the kit. And all the cymbals, by the way, are Zildjians. And let's just take a listen. Really awesome natural sounding drums, perfect for rock or even some more natural sounding metal. And even the demo that I personally did for this drum kit that's up on the Room Sound website, I did a death metal song and the drums worked out perfect. So just really great drums, great room sounds, no pun intended, and just a really easy to use interface. If you have any questions about the pitch or close mics, kit sustain, the MIDI gain settings, the bleed, anything like that, the key map, go check out our video on the blasting room, because a lot of these settings work the same way as they do in the blasting room, and you can get a lot of information on how to use this plugin there. So the last thing that I want to go over here is the Maas sauce. And if you have the Kurt Ballou series drums, this is going to be pretty familiar to you. So what I have programmed here is 3 MIDI hits that come in around 114, and then 3 that come in around 118. The Maas sauce is activated at 117, and we have the sustain real low. And pretty much what you're going to hear is 2 MIDI hits that aren't that far apart velocity-wise are going to sound drastically different. The 3 later hits are going to sound way harder and more aggressive, and that's because the Maas sauce will have activated because those hits are over 117 in the velocity. And what the Maas sauce is it's some of Jay's processing on his outboard gear in parallel, and you can hear it by itself if you hit the solo button. And now, without the solo button, you'll be able to hear the first 3 hits, which don't have Maas sauce, and the second 3 hits, which do. You hear that extra presence and smack? That's the Maas sauce really doing it. You can really hear it if you solo out that direct. The second set of 3 has way more smack and attack than the first set. And that's that Maas sauce, baby. New J Maas signature series from Room Sound. Go pick it up today.